G'day, Brennan here from the Cargo Bike crew, and I'm sitting in the new Enviolo Family Next Pro. It's a premium front-loader cargo bike. It's got a pretty strong focus on families, but don't let that stop you from carrying your shopping, your dogs, or your camping in this really practical box bike. Enviolo released their family model at the 2010 Eurobike show as a prototype, and that styling really has been the basis of all of their models since then, with the 20-inch wheel at the front, 26-inch wheel at the rear, mid-mounted electric motor, and all aluminium frame with this molded EPP cargo box. There have been some midlife updates to the bike, so adding the Bosch motors, for instance, updating the rear frame to increase the stiffness, adding lots more accessories, things like that. But really, it's looked pretty much the same since its release. The newly released Family Next is still an evolution rather than a revolution, but there are two significant changes that they brought on. So number one is the front suspension fork, which a lot of people have been asking for. And then secondly is the restyled EPP box and the protection bar here. So they definitely give the Enviolo a more modern look and feel. And this new pastel green colour's growing on me. I didn't really like it at first, but yeah, it gives it quite a modern look as well. Full disclosure, this review contains our own unbiased opinions and we're not being paid for this review. Dutch Cargo loaned us this bike for the review at no cost. Let's get into the specs. The Family Next is 267 centimetres long. I measured this myself, including the mudguard at the back, because there's a bit of an extension on there. So it sits at the long end of front loaders in the market. It might be compared to bikes such as the recent Muller Paxter 270 or the Cube Cargo Hybrid. In Europe, there's also the Lovens S85, but that's not available here in Australia. The pricing is at the top end, so this Enviolo Family Next Pro is priced at 13,799 Australian dollars, and Enviolo offer a 5-year frame warranty and 2-year components or parts warranty. Let's have a closer look at the front suspension and the new frame. So it's a Suntour Mobi 34 cargo fork. It's a coil spring fork with 80 millimeters of suspension travel, and it's got adjustable preload at the top. I'll show you how to adjust that before we go on our test ride. As the name suggests, the stanchions are 34 millimeters in diameter. It's got a 15 millimeter through axle and 1.5 inch steerer tube. So it's going to offer some pretty good control when we take it out on the road. The front box has been updated to fit the suspension fork, so the front's been raised up here slightly. This is all new underneath. We've got the design LED lights here. Those are an optional extra, but they really help with visibility and they give it quite a modern look to the front there. The tubes, rather than being rounded as before, they've got a really nice curve on the top and then squared off corners. The new box, as I said before, is made out of EPP or expanded polypropylene. It's really nicely curved here. This is the same stuff that you find in helmets and bumper bars, things like that, and it's quite durable and it'll give a little bit of impact protection in a crash. The floor itself internally is the same size as the old model, so it's 56 centimeters long and 40 centimeters wide. Not quite big enough to fit a Euro box, but there's heaps of room in there for kids and shopping and bags and whatnot. The box all the way around is a little bit higher along the edges here and at the backrest, so this will be good for older kids, give them better support at the back here. The seat pad to the top of the box in the middle here is 40 centimeters, and then off to the side here I think is about 33 centimeters. The seat pad down here has a nice textured finish, and you've got some new fidlock fasteners on these 3-point seat belts, and these are supposed to be more difficult for the kids to unlock. The passenger seat sits on these molded outriggers rather than the metal frame from the previous model. There is a sticker on the bottom stating a maximum weight of 36 kilos. However, Enviolo say that this is the maximum harness weight, and an adult can actually sit on the bench up to 100 kilos. On the outside of the box, we've got a reflector at the front here on both sides, and then a reflector at the back of the tubes on the rear. And if you have a look down here, we've got a cutout at the back for kids to climb into the box. For the owners of the old Enviolo, you'll be pleased to note that they have moved it from the front. This used to be a bit annoying when you've got the rain cover fitted and kids trying to climb into the rain cover. Now with the opening here, the kids can climb straight into the box, so it's great to see this change. Maximum gross vehicle weight is 250 kilos. The bike itself weighs around 48 kilos, so that leaves 200 kilos for additional load. The maximum rider weight is 125 kilos, and the maximum weight in the box is 125 kilos as well. So as long as these don't add up to over 200 kilos, you'll be totally fine. The Urban Arrow frame is designed to suit riders from 155 centimeters to 200 centimeters tall. The seat post is quite long and it's adjustable with a quick release. There's also a screw here to deter theft. The stem is angle adjustable. You need an Allen key to do it, but you can get it down quite low, but still in reality it's quite an upright riding position. It's good because it gives you a really nice view of what's going on ahead of you, and you can look over the kids as well. The angle of the seat post is actually quite laid back, so when you do adjust it, for shorter riders it gets you closer to the handlebars, for taller riders it gets you further back from the handlebars, so you don't really need to do too much adjustment before you get riding other than just changing your saddle height. It's a step-through frame with a really low step over. Even with the kickstand up like this, it's really easy to get on and off the bike. And speaking of the kickstand, this is an Urban Arrow specific design, so it's slightly updated from the previous model. The foot is now a one-piece design, it's not two bits of rubber, and it's a slightly harder plastic as well, so I think it'll be much more durable than the previous design. Last bit on the frame back here, it's got an ABUS frame lock or cafe lock. It's good to just have it on to stop the bike being rolled away, but I'd really recommend using a D-lock to lock the bike onto something pretty solid when you're away from the bike. The drive system is the Bosch Smart System, and the Family Next Pro is fitted with the Gen 4 cargo line motor. It's a 250 watt motor with 85 Newton meters of torque. It can provide up to 400% pedal assist, up to a maximum of 600 watts power. The battery fitted is the 545 watt hour Bosch power pack, and that's good for about 50 k's of range. We'll get into the range test later. You could option up to the 800 watt hour pack to get a little bit more range out of one charge. The charger itself is a 4 amp charger, so it claims up to 50% charge in 2 hours and 100% charge in 5 hours. In other regions there is the Family Next Advanced, which has the performance line motor with 75 Newton meters of power and the 400 watt hour battery pack. The display here is the Kiox 300, and you've got the LED remote on the side here to do all the controlling. There's heaps of ride data shown on the display here. You can also preload some navigation and do basic navigation on the screen. The display can be removed to act as like an electronic lock when you're away from the bike. And you can also use the e-bike flow app to customize your riding mode. So if you don't like the standard riding modes, you can make some changes. Back here we've got the Enviolo heavy duty hub, which is a continuously variable gearbox. It's the only option on the Urban Arrow, and you control it with the twist shifter up here. And there's no specific shift point, so you can just dial in your preferred cadence at any speed. It's super easy to use, and there's plenty of range for most hills. Also fitted is the Gates CDX carbon belt drive. So this is a super clean and super quiet drivetrain, and there's pretty much zero maintenance. So we've got this fitted to our own Urban Arrow, and it's really, really nice. The brakes are a Magura CME. This is a city and cargo specific brake lever. They're fitted to the Magura MT5 4-piston calipers front and rear. The rotors are 180mm diameter in the front and 203mm in the back, both 2mm thickness. And the pads themselves are just an all-round organic compound, so pretty good in all conditions and nice and quiet enough. The tyres fitted as standard are a Schwalbe pickup 20 by 2.15 in the front. And then in the back we've got the Schwalbe Supermoto X in a 26 by 2.4 inch. The pickup is a cargo specific tyre with a double carcass, so it's really good for heavy cargo loads, a bit more durable as well. But the ride quality can suffer a little bit, so I think that's why they've only fitted it to the front, where you've got the suspension fork to soak up a little bit more of that vibration. In the back, you can run that 2.4 inch tyre at a slightly lower pressure than you normally would, and that gives a little bit more cushioning at the back where you don't have any suspension fitted. All right, let's get on with the test ride. Let's go. All right, before we get riding, we're going to adjust the preload on the front suspension. So there's 2 adjustment knobs on top of the suspension fork at the front here. And what we'll do is make sure that we've got full range of suspension travel, or enough suspension travel when you're running with heavy loads in the front. So all you need is a zip tie or Velcro strap or something to sit around the stanchion at the front there. Push it all the way to the bottom, We've got 40 kilos in the bucket, so let's go ahead and sit on the bike. Now you want to do this carefully, so just roll it off the kickstand gently, don't bounce it too much. Sit on the saddle as you would when you're riding. That'll compress the front suspension, and then just gently bring it back up, like so. And then we'll come back around to the front. So as you can see, the zip tie's been pushed up a little bit. Now you want this, it doesn't need to be super accurate on a cargo bike, but you want this to be about a quarter of the way or a third of the way through the travel. So you can see we've got about 65 millimeters of travel here and maybe 20 millimeters used up. So you don't really need to adjust it, or I won't need to adjust it today, but all you do is just turn these knobs on the top. So turn it just like that. Make sure you do both sides evenly, so 1 turn on each side, 5 turns on each side. I think I counted up to 7 turns you can do to adjust the preload there. So yeah, that's how you adjust the preload before you get riding. All right, first impressions on the Urban Arrow Family Next Pro after about 10,000 Ks with our own Urban Arrow family. Feels very, very familiar. Just a bit smoother. We're in auto mode here on the new Bosch Smart System cargo line motor. And from the outside, it looks quite similar to the Gen 4 motor on our own Urban Arrow. The Smart System adds a few sensors, things like that. It doesn't have that mechanical whine. It is more of an electronic whine. A little bit of background noise. It's not too bad. Very smooth. So we'll come up here and we'll check out some of the modes. So having a look at some of the ride modes. So we got eco mode, tour mode, auto, and cargo. So eco mode gives you 60% of your own power back through the motor. So you put in 100 watts, it gives you 60 watts of motor power on top of that. Tour mode's 140%, cargo mode is 400%. So the most powerful maximum power up to 600 watts. Auto mode's really interesting. What it does, it varies the motor assist. Let's just take off there. Yeah, quite smooth takeoff there from the line. So yeah, auto mode varies the assist levels between 60% and 400% assistance, so between eco and cargo, essentially. It detects the gradient that you're riding on, and it attempts to hold your speed at whatever you're riding at. So 23 k's an hour, if you come to a hill, it'll detect a bit of an incline and it'll boost your motor power to try and hold that speed. And then when you come to the other side of the hill, it'll back it off a little bit as well. So it's quite good. It's a bit like a cargo mode with battery saving technology. All right, so the only option for gearing or gear shifting on the Urban Arrow Family Next is the Enviolo internal hub. So that gives you a fairly good range for climbing most hills, and then it gives you a bit of speed, so probably top out about 40 k's an hour. You've got a shifter over here. I know some people don't like the grip shifter and don't like the feel of having sort of infinite gears, but I really like the fact that I can dial in, so I've got a bit of slow cadence now, just going downhill. Maybe you want to go a little bit faster, you can just dial it back to exactly the pedal cadence that you want. And yeah, the brakes on here, we've got the Magura CME. Down here. Yeah, the Magura CME, so it's got a slightly wider lever here, so it's got a 4-finger lever. Yeah, I reckon these are one of the best cargo bike brakes you can get. Super progressive brake. You don't have to pull a massive handful, but yeah, it's good enough for just slowing down here. We got speed bump, slowing down, and you can just really grab a massive handful in an emergency situation. You can stop quite quickly and easily and grab a handful of brakes. So yeah, really nice. And here we go. So when you're coming up from the shed path, really smooth. If you're riding on super good cycling infrastructure, you probably won't notice the difference between this one. Yeah, we're on a really smooth concrete path now, and most of the work's being done by those big tyres. So it's not a massive thing to have, but it's just nice to have if you're going over lots of bumps and imperfections. Yeah, so the tyres, we've got the pickup 20-inch at the front, so it's a little bit stiffer than a normal tyre. So it's got the cargo double carcass. It does mean it's a little bit stiffer, but the suspension really soaks up any imperfections, things like that. And then the rear, you've got a Supermoto in 2.4 inches wide, so it does soak up a lot of the bumps, and it's not as harsh. I think I still would like a suspension seat post. And yeah, it's not too, yeah, it still reacts quite well steering wise. It's not too slow with the suspension fork. There's not too much flex in the fork. Yeah, curb cuts like that, the front suspension just really smooths things out. Yeah, sort of normally you'd need to slow down with a 20-inch wheel and no suspension. So in those sorts of situations, it's not a mountain bike fork. It's not going to soak up massive tree roots and things like that, but little cracks in the pavement works super well to smooth out the ride, even though a front loader is one of the smoothest ways to carry kids around, because you're sort of sat in between the two wheels. You're not sitting on top of one of the wheels. It's actually a lot smoother than, say, riding in the long tail. All right, there's a good section here for a bit of a go-to-woe test. So I'll stick it in cargo mode. I've got it in the lowest gear here. Make sure there's no one coming up behind me. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Assist straight away from the cargo motor, Enviolo. Just give it a bit of a twist. And that's 26 k's an hour. And then at the mark, we'll pull a handful of brake, see what the braking distance is like. Yeah. Did lock up the rear brake a little bit, but from there, that's probably 4.5 meters, which is extremely good for a bike this size. Yeah, we've got 40 kilos in the front there as well, so about 170 kilos, 170 kilos gross weight. So really good brakes on this one. All right, here we are at the hill climb location. We've got about a 200 meter climb, also 11% average, gets up to 15% at the steep section there we can see in front of us. It's not super long, but it gives you a good idea of what the Enviolo is capable of. So we've got it in cargo mode. Make sure we'll start off in the easiest gear here, and we'll just spin up. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, I'll just leave it in this gear, easiest gear, 14 k's an hour. Slow on down to about 8 k's an hour. I'm having to put in a bit of power here. We've got 40 kilos in the bucket. See, I'm putting in 300 watts here. It's going. It's quite tricky through the steepest section. All right, speeding back up a bit here. All right, guys, so yeah, that was a little bit a slow one on the Urban Arrow. I'm not sure you'd want to go much heavier on the load or much steeper on the hill. We were probably, yeah, we had 40 kilos in the bucket, so probably 170 kilos gross load. It's pretty heavy and I had to work a bit hard to get up that hill. But yeah, we got there in the end. All right, now on the gravel track, not really the place you'd find an Urban Arrow. But yeah, for this suburban Arrow rider, this is sort of the majority of trails that we've got near us that are off-road away from traffic. It's still pretty good. The pickup, Schwalbe pickup tyres, yeah, they grip really well. You've got the Supermoto on the back there. It smooths out the bumps fairly well with the wider tyres anyway. You don't really need the suspension fork. Where it does come in handy when you've got washaways. This is pretty much a brand new gravel track here, but when you've got older trails and maybe trails that cars or four-wheel drives can drive on, they get chewed up a fair bit. You end up with exposed rocks and potholes and washaways. So yeah, the suspension fork's a bit of a godsend in those conditions. If you're riding on gravel tracks a lot, I'd probably look at upgrading maybe to a wider pickup at the front, 2.35, and then fitting another pickup at the rear, just for a bit more durability if you're riding on these surfaces all the time. The other thing that I mentioned earlier, and the thing that I miss the most from our own Urban Arrow, is a suspension seat post. We've got the thud buster fitted. It does take some of the adjustment away from the seat post, so shorter riders might not be able to fit it. But yeah, if you can fit one, that'll be the first thing that I fit to any cargo bike. It just gives so much more comfort to the rider when you're riding in these slightly bumpy conditions all the time. Yeah, the grips are really good, nice and squishy, and yeah, just feel really good underhand. Fairly grippy compound as well, so if it gets dusty or wet or whatever, you're not going to slip off the handlebars. And yeah, one last thing, the Enviolo internal hub and the belt drive, that's the ultimate combination for low maintenance when riding on gravel roads. So yeah, basically you don't need to do anything with it. It'll never get greasy or mucky. Yeah, the only thing to do is just give it a scrub every now and then when you wash the whole bike, and then dry it off, and that's it. As the name suggests, the Family Next is built to carry your family. It's got a bench seat built in for 2 smaller kids or 1 larger kid. There are a set of 2 seat belts, 3-point harnesses. It's got the fidlock connector, which is a magnetic connector. It's pretty easy to get on, but it is supposed to be more difficult for kids to get off by themselves, so they'll be in there nice and safe. The higher seat backs are nice and there's plenty of leg room for kids. The optional 3rd seat goes at the front facing backwards. The step on the side's great, although with the slightly taller sidewalls, younger kids might feel like it's a bit of a stretch to get in. My little one seemed to be okay getting in and out using the step. I feel that kids have bounced around less in a front loader anyway compared to a long tail cargo bike, but adding the front suspension just makes it a lot more comfortable for them. And also having the weight down low makes it easier for the rider too, so you don't have a big kid sitting up over a big back wheel throwing the bike around with their weight. We did a full weekend shop for a family of 3. I've got a plastic tub in the front plus 2 shopping bags and a pannier on top. I didn't have the rear pannier rack fitted, but it all fit in the bucket anyway. It's nice and easy to ride with a full load. The steering's a little bit heavier, but getting close to 200 kilos gross load, I can still ride it one-handed. You do want to ride nice and smooth anyway. The Urban Arrow comes fitted with mudguards and hardwired lights as standard. The mudguards are alright, especially if you're only riding in the dry, but I found that if you're riding in the wet a lot or doing lots of gravel, the front one could be a little bit longer to stop rocks and mud getting thrown up all underneath into the kickstand and onto the bottom of the steering column. I fitted a long front mudguard to my own Urban Arrow to help keep it much cleaner underneath. The front light is up on top of the front mudguard. It's a Lezine Power 115. I found the intensity of the light pretty good. It's got an STVZO cutoff. However, I think the beam pattern's just a little bit narrow. It's fine in the city, but away from street lights, I find I want a little bit more width and maybe something with a switchable high beam. The rear light is a Spanier Platio, and I do wish they'd fitted something newer for the family next. I'm not sure if Enviolo have changed this rear light in over 10 years. It's a single LED built into a reflector, and that's it. No other functions. It's fine, but yeah, I'd like to see something like the Spanier Pimento with a brake sensing function, and that's a much more futuristic looking rear light, and it's just not that much more expensive either. All right, let's move on to the range test. So I've got the stats here. On a full charge, the computer claims 72 kilometers in eco mode and 54 kilometers in auto, which is what I tested on. I use my regular 11K commute, so 11 or 12 Ks. Not too many hills, pretty flat, not too heavily loaded either. So the first run I did 47 kilometers and ended up with 8% remaining on battery charge. So I wouldn't push it much further than that. There is a cutoff. I think it's around 5%. It will cut motor power and just leave you with lights just to get home on no motor assist. And then the second time through, I tested it on tour mode to see what the difference was. I thought it would get a bit more range, but we did 46 kilometers and had 25% remaining. So a fair bit more remaining. You could probably get another 10K or so out of a full charge on tour mode. I definitely worked a lot harder on tour mode. It doesn't boost you up those hills as much, which is where you're losing the range on auto mode. It's boosting you up towards that cargo level of 400% pedal assist, so it uses a lot more power. We didn't test any of the accessories other than these design LED lights, so let's just have a quick look online and see what's available. There's a rain cover. We've got this on our own Enviolo, and I think it's really necessary to keep riding all year round. It's good in winter, even though it doesn't rain so much. Keeps the kids warm on those cold and dry days. Next, you've got a box cover, which is a lower profile option. You can open up the back for kids and give them a little bit of extra coverage if it's cool or rainy, or you can just completely close it and keep rain out of the box. Don't do that with kids in there. There's a front bench that I mentioned earlier. There's a floor mat, which just stops things rattling around. It's a bit more comfy under your feet. The rear carrier I think is really useful if the box is full of kids, for example. You can pop backpacks and stuff on the back while you're shopping. And then there's the baby seat adapter set. I've never used this, but yeah, you can fit a few different baby seats into the box and still have 1 or 2 kids on the bench seat. All right, let's round things up. Enviolo have been leaders in the marketplace for more than 10 years. They've built a really big following in their home in the Netherlands and overseas, even as far away as here in Australia. With a lot more competition in the marketplace, the Family Next has been built to claw back some of that ground. They're not doing it on price, so they've designed a cargo bike that is built to last. It's using top-end, high-quality parts, and it's manufactured on sustainable production lines. The two things that people will always ask is it worth $13,000 and where am I going to park it? So number one on the price, there are a lot of cheaper options out there, but the Enviolo Family Next feels like it's been designed with longevity in mind. It's probably a little bit heavier than it needs to be, but it just means it feels like a tank. It's going to last a long time. Have a think about how you might use the bike. So you might not do everything at once, but a lot of people start with the school run, do it once or twice a week, up to 5 times a week. You might be doing trips to the playground after school, quick milk run after work, your weekend play dates, and even grocery shopping. It becomes addictive and suddenly it's second nature. You'll be using it so much every day that price just, you'll forget how much you paid for it. Don't forget that you can also get these things on subscription and leasing plans, so you don't have that massive upfront cost either. And where am I going to park it? So ideally you'll have a spot in the garage for it or a shed to keep it out of the weather. It'll last much longer with much less maintenance if it's covered. Somewhere outside, if you can lock it up to a solid object under a motorcycle cover, that's all right as well. And if it's easy for you to access, then you're more likely to use it every day. So keep that in mind. Just keep it safe, keep it locked up with a really good D-lock, and also make sure it's covered under insurance just in case the worst happens. The family next is a really nice evolution of front-load cargo bike from Urban Arrow. I was really impressed by how smooth it rides, and even as an existing Urban Arrow owner, I'm pretty tempted by an upgrade here. It rides really nicely and smoothly, and if you're looking for a really cruisy cargo bike to carry the whole family, I'd really recommend taking this one for a test ride. See you next time. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, give it a like and subscribe for more next time. Cheers.